Hello, and welcome to the Screen Stoop podcast. Today we watched The Boogeyman. Let's talk about it. From 20th Century Studios that also brought you The Barbarian, Antlers, and Hide and Seek. The Boogeyman was written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods from A Quiet Place, 65, and Haunt, plus Mark Heyman from Black Swan. It was directed by Rob Savage, a small-time award winner for 2020's Host. The Boogeyman is part of the horror mystery thriller genre, starring Sophie Thatcher as Sadie Harper, also known as the Bright Vespa Girl from the Book of Boba Fett, Vivian Lyra Blair as Sawyer Harper, also known as Leia and Girl from Obi-Wan the series and Bird Box, Chris Messina as Will Harper. He's going to be in a new TV show series with Kaylee Cuoco that I keep getting ads for called Based on a True Story. And lastly, the only guy I really recognize, David, I can't pronounce his last name, Dalschmidt-Chain as Lester Billings. He is Polka Dot Man from the second Suicide Squad, Joker's Thug from A Dark Knight, and Calendar Man voice for The Long Halloween. The Boogeyman is heavily based on a short story by Stephen King, written in the 1970s. I did a little homework and actually read the Boogeyman short story from Gray Matter. It's about Lester Billings, a cowardly guy, going to speak to a psychiatrist about the deaths of his 3 children. It hints to anxiety disorder, possible dissociative, definite control and PTSD, but in the end, the Boogeyman is real and actually still haunting him. A few interesting facts about the Boogeyman. It was originally set to be released on Hulu, but after receiving such a great reception from test screenings, it got a theatrical one instead. Another interesting fact is that the actors of the Harper family did real-life family-type bonding activities so that the leads could build authentic chemistry. And my favorite piece of interesting trivia is that the light ball, a prominently featured prop, was just a last-minute Amazon order. It was supposed to actually be a malfunctioning lightsaber, according to the director, but the Leia actress probably shouldn't be using that, so they just quickly rewrote the script in about a day to include a light ball, and it is like one of the most important or interesting parts of the actual film.
As of June 3rd, The Boogeyman on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is 61%, and the audience score is 64%.
Do you want to read one critic review and one audience review for it?
Yeah, I will read the top critic and the top audience.
Cool.
Okay, this one's going to be a bad one. James Berardinelli says, represents a tremendous misstep, conflating King's unsettling tale with generic horror tropes in a third act that feels like an Alien ripoff.
So I can't entirely disagree with that poor critic review, but I think it's maybe not even touching on the positive aspects of the film.
No. So the top verified audience score is 5 stars, and it says, jump scares were amazing. I'm just going to do another one of audience because it was so short.
Yeah.
The second top one is loved the scares.
Okay. So do another audience score, please.
Okay, so the third one is 3.5 stars and is the protagonists need to invest in better lighting for their house and buy some flashlights. Get that flashlight that can burn through paper.
Yeah,
good movie.
I agree. That's something that I have an issue with as well. But I don't think that the movie deserves to be in the low 60s.
No, not at all. And I get where that person was coming from, but in your everyday, like, home, you're really going to get a bunch of flashlights and stuff.
I have 20 flashlights.
Yeah, but they sit in a drawer and...
It's in case one goes out. I have 20, like, combination of flashlights and very large lanterns. All right, so let's get into the movie review. So you have not seen The Babadook, but it is in themes almost identical to this movie. The grief, the tie-in to... It's very, very much similar to The Babadook. And you said that those were your favorite parts of the movie. I can't exactly take away because it's not like The Babadook should be the only movie in history that ever gets to do that type of thing. But why don't you explain how you really identified with the theme?
So the whole premise of the movie basically is that there's this creature who is called the Boogeyman, and he feeds on those who are in a weak point in their life. This family just lost their mom, so they're very depressed, they're very upset. Basically kind of like loss. And so for me, there's a lot of emotional ties with the movie that I identify with because of losing my dad when I was younger. And I feel like the movie's kind of telling in its own way how holding on to stuff about a loved one's death can be unhealthy in a certain way. And I think they just did a very good job theatrically showing kind of like the road it goes to. Granted, it was like a dramatic way to go about it, but it's still a very like the family's really struggling. They're having inner fights with each other.
The monster and the struggle against the monster are an allegory for personal grief.
Yeah, and so throughout the movie, there's a lot of talks about like moving on and letting go and stuff. And so I might be slightly biased to how good the movie is because for me, it hit so emotionally hard that I really enjoyed it a lot. And I felt like they did a good split between the emotional ties of the movie and the horror mystery aspect of it.
Future MJ here. Shelby and I spend almost 10 minutes of our podcast arguing about the mixed and confusing messages or themes of the Boogeyman. Looking back, I've got a rework that almost fixes the entire movie. Here it is. In the script, never mention grief, sadness, or weakness. The Boogeyman isn't here because of grief, it's here because of fear. It's summoned by and haunts anyone who is anxious, agoraphobic, or scared. We had that therapist scene with the fear confrontation in the lightbox. Highlight that Lester Billings was perpetually anxious. Give us some hints in his backstory, resulting in his fear causing the Boogeyman to appear and kill his baby and kill his family, because maybe it just gets worse and worse over time as more bad things start to happen. It's like a feedback loop. As Lester gets more anxious because more people in his family start dying, the monster's even bigger and more vicious. We have the Harper dad, who is afraid of being a father. Show him struggling even more emphatically, like messing up or forgetting stuff, not just being absent. Sadie is already afraid of letting go. You can keep a lot of the dress stuff, the summoning spirits, and the struggling to fit in with her peers. Leia, Sawyer, is afraid of the dark. She's a kid. It works. The story will be similar to it, but this creature is described as liking to play with its food in the current iteration. So it also must just enjoy tasting frightened human meat? Finally, there's no talk of transferring or sicking the Boogeyman on anyone else. The idea should be that everyone has fears. So it just as easily could be haunting the Harpers as it did the Billings, and it could just as easily haunt you, the audience member. Make sure you shut your closets tonight, millennials, as we are the most anxious generation. There are unlimited boogeymen, just like there's no shortage of fear in our human lives. The boogeyman's motivation isn't grief, it's fear. The moral of the story is that you'll never get rid of it. Okay, so that's why I just have a few issues right in the beginning. So we open on the baby that is obviously going to get killed. It's Lester Billings' child. And the baby is murdered by the monster, right? The monster's already there. I really liked how they showed that because it was exactly what I was picturing when I was reading that short story of Stephen King's. But then we go to Leia. I'm just going to call her Leia. I know that her name is Sawyer, but Sadie and Sawyer sound so similar that I think I'm going to get them mixed up. So Leia, and she's a wonderful actress. It's not me trying to like degrade her. She was excellent, fantastic.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. You should not have two characters with the similar names. It's difficult to discern the two.
Yeah. So then we open up on Leia and she's sleeping and she's already scared of the dark. And the closet is slightly open and she already is using her ball kind of to identify the darkness, which I was thinking, okay, so she's already being haunted by this boogeyman. And then within the movie, it says that Lester brought the monster to their house, and now it attached to the oldest daughter, Sadie. And so I was then confused and kind of disconnected with, is it grief, just general grief, because I would have been fine with that, but then they said, no, Lester brought it. And then the oldest girl was struggling with it more. Why did it start haunting the youngest child? And then also, why did it take Lester Billings' child as a baby? When Lester Billings says that he dies of SIDS, that's obviously not correct because we saw the boogeyman crawl out of the closet and mimic the dad's voice and kill the baby. So why was the boogeyman there in the first place? It made more sense in Stephen King's short story because in that, the monster, the boogeyman, just takes babies, just takes little babies in their cribs when their parents aren't watching them. Not about grief, nothing like that. And so the first baby of Lester Billings was killed by the boogeyman, second one and the third one. And they're all babies. Lester Billings in the book doesn't have children, all three alive at the same time. It's one is born, one is dead. One is born, one is dead. And I think that they kind of confused them or conflated the two, and that just didn't work for me.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with. I think your point kind of ties into that first review that I read, how it conflates the story that he wrote. It doesn't really, it's more like they used the story as inspiration,
yeah,
and did not actually pull from the story.
And that's fine. But then why did you stay so true to it in other aspects of the film? It's like they wanted both. They wanted to stay true, which they did a great job staying really true to Stephen King's short story. I mean, the scene where Lester Billings first comes into the psychiatrist's office, it was identical. It was even line for line. Like, I'm not a Catholic, so I can't go see a priest. That's actually like in the short story word for word. And so I liked that, but the whole grief thing, it wouldn't have made sense that Lester Billings' first child.
Yeah, I can see.
What's the boogeyman's motivation here?
I can see what you're talking about. I think, because you're right, it does open up on Leia being afraid of the dark, but you don't actually see the closet open.
It is open, though.
It is open, but you don't see it open.
And but because of how the boogeyman works, you're supposed to assume going through the whole movie that every time you see a closet slightly open, the boogeyman is causing it.
Yeah.
So why even have that?
Yeah, I think having the closet,
I think an editing rework could have fixed that issue.
Yeah, maybe they should have closed the closet, because from what I saw in the beginning was that they were just doing the normal, everyday, children are afraid of the dark. That's just every child growing up is afraid of the dark at some point.
Also, I actually wrote down that this was a really great positive, that you could tell Leia hadn't slept well, like in a long time, because she has these massive bags under her eyes, especially in the beginning. Like when she's around all the other kids, she looks very, very exhausted. Like she doesn't sleep very well, and she's got all these nightlights around her. Maybe it is that she's just afraid of the dark, but it's too close to the actual point of the movie for me to be able to say, okay, that's different.
Yeah, but I think the reason why they did that for her is because they needed a way for that little girl to be able to defend herself.
But the boogeyman also appears to her first. Even if you move past that point, the first scene where you see Leia, she still is haunted by the boogeyman before her older sister ever is. So why did you give Lester Billings' wife that line saying, oh, now it's attached to you? It's obviously attached to the little girl as well first. It was proven again that it's attached to Leia.
Yeah, I think that line was just because they were talking one-on-one.
But in the Polaroid, you could see that the boogeyman was behind the older sister.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's not attaching itself to one person.
No, I think it attaches to a family for sure. And like you were saying how you were confused with the first family, I think it did attach to the parents because of the loss, but they said it attaches to the weak and like the sad and stuff. So it attached to the parents for being sad for losing their baby, and then the weak are the children themselves. They're weak. They can't defend themselves. There's no way for them to protect themselves or other people.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going crazy. How many times did Lester Billings' wife give birth? I thought 3. There's a baby, and then there's 2 older kids. The baby would not have died of grief. How many times was Lester Billings' wife pregnant? I thought only 3 children died, and the baby was killed first, which would have been causing the grief that allegedly started this whole thing. But why was it there in the first place?
And maybe even the psychiatrist was giving all those weird reactions because he was seeing it too. Maybe the dad also was seeing this monster and he just was chalking it up to like taking pills or something like that. I will accept the family, like the whole Lester Billings family, and it follows the entire family, and maybe I just like misheard that it only attaches to one person. Okay, it's attached to the entire Harper family. That's totally okay. I'll move past that. But why did the first baby die?
So I did like how all of the characters got introduced. You have little Sawyer, Leia, like she's a fighter. She's scared of the dark. She's scared of the closet. I'm assuming that she's scared of the boogeyman. The first thing she does when she wakes up in the morning is kick her little ball into the closet to light it up and be like, okay, it's not there. And you've got the older sister that's really struggling with the grief of the mom. She goes and takes the dress and she wears it and to school. It's very emotional with this dress. I actually really, really liked all those scenes because it's like when you lose someone, like just even looking at their clothing is so meaningful. It's like you go through 1,000 different emotions just from holding on to it and being like, ugh, like, I just want you to be in this. I just want you to be here.
My dad had a flannel jacket that I wore for like 2 years after he passed away. And when it ripped and I had to throw it away, it was the hardest thing. I held on to it for like another 6 months.
Yeah.
Even though it ripped.
And then I really liked how it came full circle when everything goes up in flames. The dress is really held on by the camera and it goes up in flames as well. And releasing that holding on and not trying to just stay in this place. I think there was a line where Sadie actually says, I'm not ready to move on, or I don't want to move on. And then everything going up in flames is like, okay, let's move on. So the Lester Billings scene in the psychiatrist's office, which to me, I'm thinking, why would you be a psychiatrist and have it in your own home? Like, you have, what?
Oh, I was going to let you finish. I was just going to say, I totally agree. I know that some people do that, but I'm the same way. I'm like, if I was ever a psychiatrist, I would never be What if you have some like criminal in there and now they know where you live?
Oh, well, I know. And then you actually see the ramifications of why this is a bad idea with Lester Billings. It just seems so dumb to me. But so many different pieces of this one scene are the entire Stephen King short story, The Boogeyman. I liked the tape recorder. Obviously in the 60s or 70s, it was a tape recorder. Now it's a digital recorder. That was the same. All of the lines that were the same, that he's responsible for his children's death. I like that he admitted that he was like a coward and that it was his fault. I don't know where I want to put this in the podcast because it should be here and it also should be at the end. So Lester Billings is in the office alone in the short story when the boogeyman appears again, just like he was here. However, in the movie, the doctor, the dad, Harper, he goes to call and report that a man is in his home and maybe you shouldn't have your practice inside of your home. And then the closet door was open, signifying that the boogeyman is here. Lester Billings is left alone in the office. In the short story, the psychiatrist finishes up their session and he is pursuing more sessions with Lester Billings. And so he asks him to go out to the office and schedule more appointments with the nurse. And the nurse has a little sign and says, I'll be back later. So Lester Billings comes back into the office, which this is now tied to the end scene. He is trying to tell the doctor, hey, he's like in the middle of a sentence. Your nurse isn't there. Can I schedule an appointment with you? And in the short story, the boogeyman walks out. The boogeyman is holding the mask of Dr. Harper. So it is kind of like, oh, the boogeyman was here the whole time and you can't get away from it type of moral to the story. And then at the end of the movie, that's not what happens. Sadie goes back into the therapist's office and she sees the closet door open and she hears the therapist's voice. And I thought, oh, cool, they're just going to do the exact short story. And she's going to be like going back because the therapist said, Sadie, can you come back in here? And maybe the boogeyman's going to be holding like a mask of this therapist, signifying that Sadie can't get away. However, in the end of this movie, she shuts the closet door, symbolizing this is the end. Boogeyman's not coming back.
Yes, but however, this is the second theory. I'm going off the end scene because you do see the therapist before she closes that closet door, and the therapist says, "Can I help you?" Giving you an idea that she didn't call Sadie back, so they may have killed one boogeyman. But what if there is another or more? As in, like the boogeymen are just creatures.
Oh my gosh! I was just so upset that it didn't turn out the way that I wanted that I didn't even catch that.
I think it was a symbolism for like the door is shut for them. They've moved on. They're done. They're not in grieving anymore, so they can move on. The boogeyman won't bother them. But it gives you an idea like the boogeyman is out there and it's hunting for other people.
You just gave me chills like saying that. I love that.
So
thank you.
Yeah, and then I told you I had a theory in the car, right? Mm-hmm. And this stems from the line of Lester's wife saying that they hunt the weak and the sad, and that it's latched on to Sadie in them, right? Mm-hmm. So she knew that, which means Lester knew that. Lester said that he saw the family in
so he did it intentionally.
Because she goes...
The wife says, oh, what did you do?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I think Lester did it on purpose.
Yep.
To get rid of the boogeyman to save his wife.
Yeah.
So he sacrificed him, which I thought was a really cool touch if that theory is true.
No, it was a cool touch, but also like why don't you the wife was like such a strong character, why wouldn't you tell her?
Also,
there was such a contrast between Lester and his wife. Like I could have understood that they were working together, but she was like rearing for a fight the whole time and he was kind of depressed and done.
Well, and she seems so smart, which leads to a problem I have where it's like she like set up this booby trap for the boogeyman. Was like, we can kill him, right? You know he's afraid of light. Why not do what they did at the end of the movie and light him on fire? Yeah. Now he's completely surrounded by light, and that's what killed him. So
there was a ton of little things in this movie. I totally understand.
Yeah.
But I really like what you said.
Thanks.
So I really like that. So Lester, in your theory, intentionally went there to push the boogeyman onto this family and leave his wife alone. Mm-hmm. Did you think that do you believe that he thought he was going to die?
I don't know.
Like so immediately.
I don't know.
That's why I wish it was just a little bit more clear about, was the boogeyman already here? And maybe it surprised him that the boogeyman was already here. Because it's almost like there's two conflicting theories or plot lines or reasons, backstories of how the boogeyman got to this family.
Yeah, which if the boogeyman was already there, that would back up the theory of the end scene that I had about there being multiple. Like he was surprised, like, oh crap, there's more.
There's
than
already one here. Shoot.
Yeah, like they thought there was only one boogeyman. Now there's two. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's not clear. That's why I'm just like, there are theories that I have. But, because he did seem surprised. I want to say that he had the intention of going in there and sacrificing himself nobly.
But no, he seemed surprised.
Yeah, because there's some poetry to this coward who was such a coward he couldn't protect his children, finally standing up and sacrificing himself to protect his wife. But he seems so genuinely surprised. I really think, like you just said, he went in there just to try and get the boogeyman to...
Maybe it was a little bit of a misdirect in the facial expression by the actor. Maybe surprised was his scared.
Yeah, maybe. But...
So Lester Billings is then killed by the boogeyman, which I liked because I was thinking, all right, now we're done following the Stephen King's short story because everything that happened within that short story has already taken place. Mm-hmm. Now we have had that happen in Act 1. We're moving on, and now we're going to tell a whole new story. But then they went back to the Lester Billings, and they created this whole backstory, and I kind of wish we would have just had this new family being haunted and now they're done with it. But because we're mixing the two back and forth and we keep going back to this haunted house of Lester Billings and everything, it's kind of jumbled.
No, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, if they would have just left it where Lester dies and they move on, they could have done whatever they wanted with the film.
Yeah,
kind of
whatever
split
they wanted
off
with
away
the
from
story.
It. Yeah, but they tied themselves back to Stephen King, which then is going to open up plot holes.
Yeah,
and
more
stuff.
issues.
Yeah, so I can understand that. So it's kind of like every other movie that's based off of a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really, until the rest of the movie, I really, really enjoyed that initial scene with Lester Billings and the psychiatrist. But then because they kind of muddied the Stephen King story, it made it so that that one scene wasn't as great and awesome. Let's move on here. The tooth pulling scene and scare were so good. I think that's the first jump scare we get, right?
I think so. And the fact that Sadie was just like, I don't know what happened. Like, are you kidding me? I got goosebumps from that.
I know.
I would have immediately been like, we're haunted.
And
We're being
that
haunted.
little actress crying like that, I mean, she is so good. She's such a good actress.
Mm-hmm.
I love her.
Yeah. This also brings up the point to where I was saying earlier where I don't think she was really knew about the boogeyman, because when that door slammed, she like, it gives off the thing like she thinks it's the boogeyman, but then you hear her go, I thought you said you were going to do it on 3, showing that she didn't know it was the boogeyman that slammed the door.
I would say that, but she keeps, I'll address it. She just fell out of her bed looking at the boogeyman. She just slammed her face in the ground looking at the boogeyman under her bed. That's why she got scared. What do you mean she didn't realize it was a monster? In a little bit.
I understand where you're coming from in the beginning too. It's just, like you said, it's kind of muddied, and I don't know if it's the writing or they didn't give too much direction on how to act, because there is a lot of times where you're like, okay, they know about the boogeyman. I guess they don't. They do. They don't.
Well, and especially after the Lester Billings thing, I was under the impression that Sadie's totally understood the story, that she heard the ruckus. She even says to the police officer, I think it was a monster or something, to that effect. She was the one that saw Lester Billings' body. She saw the whole commotion that happened within the room as he was being killed or, getting taken into the closet. Which, can the boogeyman move? Does he just appear from closet to closet, or can he move within the light? It's just you can't see him and he can't attack you?
It looked like he, it's almost like a vampire. The light hurts him, because you see him dart from the closet to under,
the bed?
Leia's bed, right? So it's like he moves quick to get out of the light, because the light hurts him. He doesn't burst into flames.
Okay.
And so I think he uses shadows to get around, but he can dart out of the light really quick.
Why was Lester Billings so creepy when Sadie was putting her mom's dress in the washing machine?
I thought the same thing, and then I've been thinking about it.
I thought, is he the boogeyman?
I think
But then he got attacked and he was already upstairs.
I think he was imagining his own kid. He had lost his kids. Here's a grown kid, and he's like looking at her one last time. Maybe he's like heartbroken, like he wishes that was his kid and that he had his family because they've been killed. Or maybe he's sitting there having second thoughts about pawning off the boogeyman onto this family.
Ooh.
So
okay.
There's a lot of reasons. Because at the first I was like, is he going to, like, the boogeyman doesn't exist?
Because he did get snatched from upstairs.
Yes.
Also, though, if he was in the closet, if the boogeyman was in the closet was open, and Lester Billings is still in the office while the dad is making a phone call, why? I know that we saw his feet leading upstairs. I was thinking that he was already killed in the office and then the boogeyman was going upstairs. Like, why don't you think that if he was scared of the boogeyman, like he was when the closet was open, when he first walks into the psychiatrist's office, don't you think he would have run out of the house? Don't you think he would have run upstairs? Why, when you get a hint that the boogeyman is here, are you sticking around to go upstairs and stare at a teenager?
You're right. So when Sadie's listening to the recording, you hear him get attacked by the boogeyman. And we know the boogeyman can shapeshift because he takes the form of Sadie's mom in the basement. So what if it was the boogeyman?
That's what I just said that.
Yeah.
But then Lester's actual body is left upstairs having a fight.
I think it was the boogeyman faking it, and the body was there just because he likes to play with his food. He likes to scare them.
But then they took the actual Lester Billings body away.
Yeah, I think the boogeyman transmorgified, or whatever you want to call it, into Lester for like the cinematic, basically. There was no reason for him to do it other than to give the audience chills, right? There's no reason for the boogeyman to do that.
Yeah.
And then he faked the fight in the closet to get Sadie's attention to go in there, and then planted the body there to scare Sadie, because I think the boogeyman lives off of fear pheromones or something.
I know, I was thinking It.
Yeah.
You're just Stephen King's It.
Yeah, which
is another derivative, and you're copying a different Stephen King thing within your...
Yeah.
So you're doing a heck of a lot of rationalizing for this movie.
I'm not trying to rationalize. These are theories I have, because I agree with you. It is, it's still probably one of my favorite movies of the year that we've watched, but there is a lot of stuff wrong with it, but they leave so much open to interpretations. I'm just trying to theorize.
Yeah. I'm trying to get an understanding of what the message here was. What were the writers and the directors trying to tell me? And it's very muddy.
Yeah, I think the message was literally just letting go. Because, I mean, there are a lot of contradicting moments and plot holes, I think, but there's a consistent message throughout the entire movie.
No, there is.
So,
but the little stuff that should be really great and tie everything together is more right now like roadblocks, or not roadblocks, but like
hurdles.
Cones that we're thinking, okay, why is that here? Why was that there? Why is that there? It's not exactly a speed bump or a roadblock, but it's definitely, does that belong right here?
Maybe they just want to have their own personal experience with the movie.
Maybe. There's a lot of movies like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I really liked the element of mimicking family members. I enjoyed how they taught you that in the very, very first scene when the little baby, I could have cried just from that moment, when the little baby says daddy because it thinks that it's his dad, and then the monster actually comes out and kills the poor little baby. I'm so upset. I hate that in horror movies. Like, it's easy. Get the dog, get the baby that's innocent, have them say something cute or whimper or be happy right before they die. I hate, my emotions are so played with. Yeah.
No, I agree. The mimicking of the family members was a very nice touch. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Moving along. Dad is struggling not to be there for his daughter, Sadie. Sadie is so strong. She is stellar. She's just trying to survive. The "I'm trying to talk to you" line cut so deep. She's in her gray sweatshirt pouring her heart out to her dad, who has no problem listening to other people's issues. And until this point, Sadie as a character was so cold and shut off from everyone at her school, and she's really gruff because she's trying to be stoic and like a wall. So when her dad shuts her out, it's just heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. I liked the differences between her dad and him, how her dad and her, how she is trying so hard to hold on to everything, mm-hmm. and he is trying so hard to move on and get through. Like, he doesn't want to confront it at all. He doesn't want to accept the death of his wife. He just wants to go forward. So he's trying to get rid of everything. She's trying to keep everything.
Yeah, I mean, he's about ignoring, and she's more about confronting. Like how he won't go to the therapist office with them.
Yeah, but it's almost like confronting in like an unhealthy thing, like how she's in the basement, she wants to keep everything.
No, they're both unhealthy. They're both doing it in
they're
an
both
unhealthy
the extremes of the exact opposite. There is a way to move on, but he's doing it in the extreme to where it's not healthy, and there's a way to hold on to stuff. Like, I have my dad's coffee mug, and that's it. Mm-hmm. She wants to keep everything, which is highly unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I do like that, because then you see the dynamic there, and you understand their struggles with each other and why they're not talking.
Yeah. I had an issue with that when my dog died. This sounds like so stupid in comparison, but my dog was like there with me through being abused and through anorexic treatment, which was years. And so he was my best friend. He slept under my like bed every single night. Mm-hmm. And when he died, so sad, we went to a vet because he was like sick and I kept taking him to a vet. Anyway, it was a surprise. The vet said, "Oh, sorry, all the other vets got your dog's sickness wrong. He has cancer. We can't let you take him home." And it was such a big shock. So they euthanized him right there. My dad and I are with them. I'm crying and everything. And on the way home, I tell my dad, like, you can't take anything, like don't do anything with his stuff. I need to, like, this was so shocking. I need to process this. And I wake up the next morning and my dad had taken everything that belonged to my dog before I woke up to a dump. Not just like the garbage can. He wanted it out. And I called him crying in the morning and I said, "What did you do?" Because my dog's bed, his blanket, everything was in my bedroom. My dad had snuck in and just got rid of it. And I said, "Wait, it's not in the garbage," because I ran outside and tried to get, and my dad said, "We don't need to hang on to it anymore. We're done with him. He's gone." And it was like exactly this type of thing. And so the only thing I had was his like oldest collar. And then I slept with this dirty, stinky, dingy collar forever because it was all that I had to hang on to. Mm-hmm. And so I can just really identify with that, like the dad and the daughter handling a death in two different ways.
Yeah.
And especially when Sadie was so surprised when he was packing up all his stuff and she just walks in and it's an empty room and she was so shocked and she's yelling at him. I'm like, I literally had this exact screaming match with my dad. Like, it was eerie. So Sadie can't talk to her dad. Obviously school didn't work out for her. And so she turns to YouTube and is now watching YouTube videos about summoning ghosts or summoning spirits or summoning her mother. As a Catholic, I believe that there's no such thing as that. You are summoning demons only. Do not do this. It was a big... So, of course, I immediately go to maybe Sadie invited the boogeyman in with her spirit summoning. And that was like my whole theory for a very long time with that point, especially because like the little light wasn't moving. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, of course the light's not moving. The monster's already here. It doesn't need to keep playing with you anymore. Yeah. So I liked that she resorted to that. And then it ended up helping her in the end because the movies... value system is different than mine. So the movie said the mom helped her turn on this lighter that didn't work consistently throughout the movie so that her whole family could be saved. The mother in spirit is protecting her family still from this evil boogeyman.
Yeah. That was one thing in the movie I didn't like. I didn't like that they added that extra element because so far it was very, as realistic as a movie like this could be, it was very realistic. You had this monster and you had this family, and now you're adding in spirits, which opens doors to a whole other bunch of stuff like demons and all these other things. Well, and then you had
possession, right?
Yeah.
Because the boogeyman somehow metaphysically possessed Sadie and put the tooth on a string down her throat, and she vomits that back up. Was that real? Was that hallucination?
Yeah, I don't even, like, was that part of the day and all of a sudden she, like, passed out in the middle of the day and then woke up? Like, that, those are the doors I'm talking about. Now I'm just confused. It was a lot. Like, I forgot about that scene because I didn't like it so much. I just blanked it out. I was like, that was stupid.
You really liked the scare, though, when the possession happened.
I did, yes. It was the scare was good, but the scene itself is just jumbled, confusing, and it added more layers to it that it didn't need.
Mm-hmm. I liked the mimicking idea because I think it came from Stephen King's short story. Because at the end of Stephen King's short story, the boogeyman is holding the mask of a psychiatrist, and it's meaning that, like, the boogeyman could have faked being an entirely real person. And so I think they took that element and they said, oh, the boogeyman can mimic the voices, echo your loved ones, things like that. And so I liked how that connected to the short story. But that might be the only added connection for the rest of the movie that I actually enjoyed. I was sad and shocked when the Amazon ball got smashed. We just looked it up and the Amazon ball is still on Amazon and it's still only $20.
Yeah, it's called Mind Glowing Moon Lamp. And it does look, if you look in the movie, it does have like moons. It's supposed to look like the moon.
Yeah.
So.
I just thought that the Amazon ball was such a great device. I can't believe that it wasn't originally in the script because they use it so often to direct the audience's attention, to light up surfaces, to create intensity, to create fear. It was so used. I can't imagine how a malfunctioning lightsaber would have done the same thing.
It would have added, I think the malfunctioning lightsaber would have added a unrealistic touch to the movie because they would have been so close to the monster. It would have been like, what was the point?
I know now you can
How'd
keep
you
it
get away?
at a distance.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
even more mystery.
Plus, it's easier to sleep curled around a light ball than it is with a lightsaber next to your
I
face,
would have liked
think.
the lightsaber just for the symbolism of like, oh, it's protective. So she could fight a monster with it.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it was just so cute. The actress got me to laugh out loud when the dad asks her, how do you sleep with all these lights? And she says, like this. And she just does such a good, authentic little like drooling sleep acting.
Yeah, the acting in this movie is spectacular. There's not one bad actor in this movie.
No.
I
Except for the monster.
all of them. I thought the monster was good.
We'll get into the monster. I just want to kind of reiterate how unrealistic it is that no one is believing this monster thing when it's so many things have happened. The entire light ball getting smashed, the tooth pull thing, under the bed, the hallway, the Sadie listening, which what a shot when she throws the digital recorder and it lands perfectly into a pitcher of water, which don't leave your water out like that if you are expecting to drink it again. It's like at nighttime. But anyway, I thought, how is no one, especially because Sadie's already listened to this recorder and it takes her a while, I feel like, to look him up on Facebook. She already was so scared immediately after kind of drawing out that picture, shading the picture, and listening to the recording that she was looking up and you could completely see the monster in the corner of the kitchen. And she opens up the refrigerator. So it's, okay, she's believing this. And then Leia, runs up to her and kicks her and is like, you scared me. Why is it taking so long for you to be on guard?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I agree. There was a lot of evidence that it existed, but I can also understand the whole aspect of like she's older, and as an adult or like an older teenager, you start to rationalize things.
When I was in high school, I would believe anything. We are almost 30, and I make you shut the closets and double check everything
I'm gonna go
constantly.
buy a padlock now.
I know. No way. No way. A teenager is not that much older than her younger sister.
Yeah, I guess.
And her younger sister is screaming at her. There's a monster here.
Yeah, but then you also think with her younger sister running up and kicking her, was like, how'd you do that with your voice? That was so mean of you. That was a mean prank. Why did she think it was a prank? She should have known it was the boogeyman all along.
I know. And also, why wasn't she like, you smashed my ball. You smashed my most prized possession and then threw it back at me.
She accused her loving sister, who's always there for her and has been incredibly caring this entire movie, of smashing the one thing she carries around with her the entire movie.
Everywhere.
Like, that's a huge issue with that
I know, that's
movie.
what I'm saying. Like, there's inconsistency in communicating and suspecting and all that. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I want to touch on is, I'm sorry, where is the dad for the entire, like, second half of Act 1 and Act 2?
Oh, you mean
He's
at night?
gone from the therapist's office through that night and the next day, and then until the next night, until Sadie's already possessed. So I know that he went and took a pill. I mean, come on, your daughters are making such a racket. One of them is in your office screaming. The other one is screaming in a hallway. You're just zonked out so much. And then they both go to school the entire next day. I remember Sadie walking into the house and Leia's there eating cookies. And it's like, how much time has passed and we haven't seen the dad anywhere?
Yeah, they do kind of establish that he does have other patients that he's still seeing by that one patient.
It just was a really long time, and I was thinking, where's the parent?
Yeah, for nighttime, I'm a heavy sleeper. I would like to think that I would wake up during all that screaming, but I might not. So I was like, man, this guy is a heavy sleeper.
Just a long time passed for the entire next day, because during that next day, Sadie goes to the Lester's haunted house, or Lester's haunted house. It's the Billings haunted house. And she plays with the monster there, comes back home, and then runs up her stairs, and the sister, this is the jump scare that you really liked, Leia's following her, and the knock on her door, I knew it was going to be the monster, because the monster doesn't just come out of closets, it's come out of other places well.
It just comes out of the darkness.
Yeah, which then I know you liked this jump scare, and I did too. It was obvious when the knock was so forceful on the door that it was going to be the monster. But also, how did Leia not see the monster as it came through the door? Because she was right behind her sister in the hallway. The hallway was lit. It had complete light. It was daytime, and her bedroom was lit. Why? I know you like the jump scare, but it didn't make any sense at all. How the monster came through, past Leia in the hallway, knocked on the door, jumped through the sister's mouth, and it's all light and it's all day.
Yeah.
And then the sister just wakes up and it's dark time. So I thought, was this a dream? And then they leave it. They don't explain any of it. It's just apparently nighttime, and then the oldest daughter, Sadie, walks through and sees the dad packing up all his stuff. And I'm like, oh, God, finally, the dad's here. Neglectful parent. Jeez. But so much time has passed. What the heck?
Yeah.
What happened to the dad? What happened to the monster? What happened to Sadie?
Well, it brings up the question of what happens to the monster whenever they turn on the light in the closet. Because it's in there and they turn it on really quick and he disappears, right? So it's like there's no clear indication of what the monster does in the light. Does he turn to like shadow himself and slither inside a t-shirt to hide in the darkness and the shirt hanging in the closet? Or does he like back up into a corner in the closet? Like, how does he go from being in the closet and then miraculously not being there as soon as they turn on the light?
There was a really subtle prop movement in the therapist's office, the first therapy office, with that red box and the dark when they're trying to treat the youngest daughter, Sawyer, who I keep calling Leia. Mm-hmm. And when she looks in the therapist's closet, the clothes kind of very subtly part, the clothes that are hanging up on the rack. And I thought, ooh, that was a really, really good scare. But they didn't really do much with it until like the very, very end. I was thinking, let's get more subtle stuff here. Mm-hmm. But they did kind of a tropey, you got that subtle, and then just flash, red, and then blah, big scare at the end.
Yeah, when they said it was gonna like start slow and then faster, I was like, I am not a fan of the strobe light scares, mainly because I can't see what's going on.
Also, it should get dimmer, it shouldn't be jarring. Like, I've done types of therapy before. It's not supposed to jar you. It's supposed to like dim, as if someone has a dimming light and the therapist is sitting there and they're just turning the dial slowly. It's not supposed to jar you like, let's inflame your fear, because fear is caused by adrenaline, cortisol, your pituitary gland, and a flashing light is just going to inflame that fight or flight response.
Yeah. But you made me think of the scene, that it's the same scene where the boogeyman, the light cuts out and the boogeyman jumps at the little girl. And then they turn on the light, and then he just disappears. Yeah. Where'd he go there? Did he just turn into mist and like...
But my thing is that if he could possess Sadie in the broad daylight, or the daylight of her room and the daylight of the hallway, why is he adhering to some sort of light rule when he's right behind her in the darkness several times?
Yeah, see, that's why I forgot that scene. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think it was possession. I think it was bad editing. I think the day actually did happen for the most part, and then she was dreaming, and while she was dreaming, he forced the tooth down her throat.
That would have been good. So why have it so immediate after she gets home from school? Maybe have her go to sleep.
That's what.
Then she's dreaming.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think it was bad editing.
Because, and then I was thinking, all right, we just learned she got a Polaroid. She just took a Polaroid of herself, and the boogeyman's right behind her. So I'm thinking, okay, he's following her everywhere he goes. And then she comes into the house, and I'm thinking, okay, he's still held on to her. So then it made sense to be possessed. But why didn't he just do that, like, at any time?
Yeah. I just want to point out, because I've been thinking about it the whole time, that blonde girl, I wanted her to die so badly.
Oh, the friend that wasn't a friend?
Yeah. I was so happy when Sadie slapped her. I was so happy. I wanted the boogeyman to kill her, but had he killed that blonde girl, it would have completely broke the movie.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't depressed or sad or weak at all. She was a bully. Mm-hmm. So...
No, but it is kind of like in Friday the 13th or Halloween when you're like rooting for someone to get brutally murdered and you're like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I really liked the subtle scare in the therapist office when the clothes slightly part. I loved the scare as the Polaroid very slowly develops and we get to see this boogeyman behind her. And I was actually really hoping that the monster did not look identical to every other A Quiet Place, Stranger Things. There was a Chris Pratt movie with some aliens and they moved very similar to this boogeyman. I was hoping it was some sort of like hooded skeleton looking figure that sucks the life out of people like a more classic boogeyman. Don't say any other horror thing that you might be thinking of. Don't.
I was just going to say like a Dementor.
Oh, no, not like a Dementor.
Because when you say hooded skeletal being...
I was thinking of the one movie that you're not allowed to say and that we have to pass really, really quickly whenever we scroll.
My favorite horror movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, it's tough because he does need to be a humanoid type beast, right? Because he can take on the form of humans. He can mimic them. So it makes sense for him to kind of look like a human in the sense of like he has like human skeletal features, his anatomy.
He was too much monster though for me. Too much generic CGI monster. When you have someone called the Boogeyman, I expect him to appear to be more man than crazy Stranger Things beast.
Look more like the guy from that. Is it a Disney movie?
There is a Boogeyman Disney movie and it's very frightening.
Yeah, I remember watching it when I was little.
It's like really crazy because there's these little weird things that happen in the house.
Doesn't he start off being the friend of the little girl to like gain her trust and stuff?
That's the end, yeah. That it's actually like another version of the guy that is friendly. It's a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I just like the fact that he looks human because to me, if you're gonna mimic humans and be able to transform into humans, you should kind of look like
that's what I'm saying. I wanted him to look more human. Be more humanoid, less creepy crawly, spidery guy.
I did like his eyes though. In the dark, I liked the small, tiny yellow dots for his eyes in the dark. Because it was like, if you weren't paying attention, you would have missed it. Mm-hmm. So it kind of shows you how like into the movie you are if you can see. Because they're so easy to miss. Mm-hmm. There's two small little yellow dots.
When you get so removed from reality, just in my opinion, when you're creating a monster, it eliminates any sort of fear factor. So I am terrified of it, Pennywise the Clown, because even though a lot of the things that he does is CGI, he's so close to looking realistic that it's the uncanny valley. What's the thing that makes people chlorophobia really actually afraid of clowns? It's just like subtly off. Things that are kind of slightly not where they're supposed to be is very frightening. And all of these movies, when they're making these characters so video gamey, I guess is the best way of saying it. The more you show me them, the less scared I am. I was more scared throughout the movie when it was suspenseful and I could imagine what the boogeyman looked like, and you didn't deliver when you actually showed me who he was.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed when I saw his entire like being, but yeah, I agree. I do think though, had he been more, I think they need to change the body, because if his face looked any more human, the whole thing about clowns is that your brain can't register.
Yeah, no. It should have been some sort of body thing, or have the body like shapeshift, have him change. I'm not gonna listen. Say the movie that I can't even hear.
Jeepers Creepers.
I'm gonna have to edit that. I'm gonna hear it. That's so scary to me, and it's just a humanoid looking. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's so scary.
He's like the Undertaker from WWE with makeup.
Okay, yeah, I know. Let's stop. Oh, I'm going to have a panic attack. Okay. I'm breathing really heavy. Okay. I'm going to pause it. Okay, I've collected myself somewhat. But that instills so much fear in me. And it is, not technically a monster, even though it has like otherworldly kind of powers.
Yeah.
Like for instance, what's the word? It's not Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's a book. It has all these different short stories in it. It's got a scarecrow guy, and it's got a really fat lady. Scary stories to tell in the dark, right?
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Those were all more scary to me because they look like people, or more like people.
It's realistic.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more grounded in reality than it is in fantasy.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what makes that's why serial killers are so scary.
The least scary one, I think, is the Jangly Man, just because I think they leaned too hard into the CGI and not enough into... like, maybe let's create some prosthetics in that movie and we can have those move around and flip around. But you get so much more scared in, let's say, when you walk through Halloween Horror Nights and there's someone there with prosthetics and stuff and it's right in front of you and you're, oh my gosh, that's real. I could touch it. It's not just three-dimensional. They're moving with that on them and it looks very frightening compared to when you have just an animatronic, or when and I'm talking about a scare actor walking around looking crazy versus an animatronic or even a projection.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because the brain can register when it's flesh and blood staring at you, or if it's CGI or an animatronic or something fake like that. Because I agree, I feel a lot more adrenaline rush when it's a real thing, even if it's not in front of me, but even on the screen there's a lot more adrenaline that I receive when it's real compared to when it's CGI, because I can tell the difference.
What's a movie with a really great serial killer? Terrifier, or not even Terrifier, but the movie that he is. It's not he, it's Art. I think it's Art the clown, and he is so scary. So I'm thinking of like VHS and The Strangers and All Hallows Eve, how scary those things are. Like Art the Clown just appearing, The Strangers, how you can see them roaming in the background. The VHS I'm using as an example because it's like it is otherworldly but still more humanoid and right in front of you. There's really scary like zombie and supernatural movies where the character is just behind them and it can be in just broad daylight and a character maybe is doing something like gardening and you just see like a real human or some sort of demented version of a human running wildly in the background toward this character, and it just inspires so much fear within you. And this movie, I don't know if it was because of the CGI, but to me, when you have a monster that's so overpowered, it's like, I'm not even scared of it anymore. There's no limitations here, and you can jump and move, and I don't really understand the rules of the dark and not the dark. It just makes it, I don't know, less realistic. I'm less invested. What about you? Am I going off of way too much of a tangent?
No, I agree. Because I felt my
intensity. I was sweating way more and up until the midpoint of the movie than I did midpoint to the end.
Yeah, the anticipation and my own belief of what the Boogeyman looked like did the same thing for me. I was like sweating more. Adrenaline was pumping. My heart was pounding. But then when they started showing the Boogeyman more and more, I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, it just doesn't matter.
And this issue isn't exclusive to just this movie. It's so many different horror movies.
Yeah, it's movies just depending way too much on CGI rather than getting an actor to go in like a bodysuit and jump around. Get a contortionist to do some contortioning stuff.
Which was something that happened in the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark with the lady.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so scary.
There's just something about contortionists that they mess with your mind in a way because humans should not be able to move like that. So when they move like that, you're like they're demented. There's no other explanation. Mm-hmm. So. And
Pennywise is so scary to me because he has all those abilities, and it's like so he is following all of these rules that I'm saying I don't like. Like, he's overpowered and he has almost no limits and things like that. But I think I'm more scared of him because the actor gave so much.
Yeah.
And there is an actual actor in him. Something that I really liked about the movie, which I'm going to hope was intentional, is that the haunting of the Boogeyman and the mystery game that Leia plays with the Boogeyman is so great because you have a really different type of scare and monster hunt going on than you do with the older sister. So right in the beginning of the movie, Leia kicks the ball into the closet. Like, she's always trying to find the monster. She uses her little ball constantly. It's like she knows that it's there and she pursues it. Whereas Sadie kind of is constantly running away from the monster. She's very, very scared of it. So Sawyer, or Leia, is always very suspicious. She's always like, I know something's there. I'm not crazy. I'm a confident little girl. I'm throwing my ball at the weird noises in the darkness. And then Sadie kind of randomly stumbles upon them, and maybe she is suspicious, but it always seems kind of like happenstance that Sadie is haunted, like Insidious or Sinister-like. So Sadie, the older sister, is more reactive toward the monster, and Leia is more investigative and proactive, and she's so smart. And I just liked that you had two different characters that are interacting with the monster very differently.
Yeah.
This comes to a climax, the pursuing of and being proactive when Leia, so she does it in the beginning, the very, very first scene when she kicks the ball into the closet. She does it with the under the bed haunt. She does it with the hallway haunt. And then she does it, final battle for her, with the television, using the TV as her replacement of the ball to try and find the monster in the room. And I really, really liked that. She's so smart, very competent, and like none of her family even knows to appreciate it because she's just doing it all on her own.
Yeah, I do like how, because of that, the end of the movie, they use the same thing where Sawyer uses Christmas lights to go into the basement to find their dad with Sadie now, because you kind of see, like, Sadie kind of understands running from it has not benefited in any way. She's trying to fight this thing while running from it, and she's losing.
Consistently ran, though. She ran out of the house the first time. She ran out of the house the second time.
The only time you see her start being proactive is when she's on the phone with her dad, and then the call gets dropped.
Yeah, there's kind of a shift in tone and mood when that happens, and she runs toward her family, and the music is crescendoing.
Yeah, and I do appreciate, though, that even though she's now being proactive and going after the monster, when she gets to the house, she slows down and starts having second thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not this immediate, okay, I'm not scared of anything anymore, I'm going to kill this thing. It's very realistic in the fact that she's terrified to death. She doesn't want to do this.
Well, and I want to go back a little bit, but also then Sawyer, or I keep calling her Leia, is the opposite as well, because she just got wrecked by the monster. So now she's in the closet. She's like, Dad got taken, but I cannot fight this thing again because I'm lost.
They flip completely,
Yeah. So I really liked the video game using the TV as a light. I totally agree with that critic, though. Leia, if you were scared of the dark and you are so smart, why are all of your lights off when you are playing a video game? Like, if I was getting haunted, I don't care if you're Sadie or Sawyer, every light in this house would be on.
I agree, but
and the dad's nowhere to be found, so he's not worried about the electric bill.
He was just upstairs trying to figure out what was going on with her.
I know,
daughter.
but I'm just saying because he's barely there.
My thing though is, and I know this is the issue with the movie as well, because they've made it so confusing what the Boogeyman can and can't do. They've established that he somehow can break light bulbs. So even if she had all the lights turned on, he would have just broke all the light bulbs with this psychic ability that he has, and then he's free to roam again. We saw it with Sadie when the light was on and it shattered.
But then why need to
liquid.
step on Sawyer's little ball the light ball that she was throwing? Why need to step on it? Why not just break the television with your mind?
We don't know if he stepped on it.
And if you could, and does the light restrict it, or is it just shy? Because Sawyer keeps lighting up this thing with the light, and it's continuing to pursue her.
I think it's just shy, and you see that with the fire, the little homemade flamethrower. He's backing away from the light. He's not on fire. He's not hurting. He just keeps backing away, like, oh no, I don't like the light. My eyes are sensitive.
And
like,
I just don't understand, because in this fight scene that I really like with Leia, when she gets attacked and her legs are flying across the ceiling, and you're kind of watching it, the camera's holding on the same spot, but the audio and everything, it's making it sound like a fight is continuing throughout the room. I like that, but why didn't the monster just jump on her? So it likes to play a game of hide and seek then, because it's walking right in front of the television, or it's at least dragging Leia across the ceiling in front of the television. So it's not scared of the light in that respect. Throws her at the television.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, because then it's just like, well, is he afraid of all light, or is it certain light that doesn't affect him? Because I agree, because even in the scene where she's on the couch, she's hiding, she's covering her own mouth, trying not to breathe so that the monster can't find her, and the monster's mimicking Sadie. The Boogeyman's head is lit up by the TV at the arm of the couch.
I know.
So it's like, is it not affected by the LED lights within the flat screen? Is it only affected by, like, porch lights or a fire? Like, what is the deal here with this? And that's why it's like, I agree with you, it's overpowered, and he doesn't really have a weakness.
It's inconsistent.
His weakness is lighting that doesn't have any physical effect on him whatsoever.
And I am gonna skip a little bit forward here. He blows out the candles when Sadie goes back to Lester Billings' house the second time, and I was like, bro, why don't you just do that the entire, what are these candles even, there's no purpose.
And maybe it's so he can't, because he did have to walk through and blow them out slowly. So maybe it's so he can't teleport around the room like he seems to do the entire movie.
But he teleports from place to place, from house to house, to closet to closet.
Yeah, so it's just like, and also, yeah, because it's the candles are lit up in that room, but then back where Lester's wife is hiding, it's pitch black. So he could have just teleported from the hallway behind Lester's wife and killed her.
So the Stephen King story works so well, because you have the premise of this monster in the story, the short story. The Boogeyman only comes out at night. It only takes babies, like little children. And when the baby is sleeping, the character of Lester keeps going into it. When the babies sleep with the parents, it is fine. So the babies are not haunted, and they're not taken, and they're not harmed, and there's no voices when the babies are sleeping with the parents. It's only when you leave your children alone. And so that it just gives you so many more parameters. Only at night, and only babies, and only when they're alone, not with parents. So much easier to work within those parameters. And even in the short story, Lester and his wife move homes. They move houses. And they go into like birth control and IUDs and stuff. Lester doesn't want another kid, but the wife did. They have another kid in this new home. And the Lester Billings character says, it must have followed us here. I thought that we were safe, but it must have taken some time to follow us here. And it kind of emphasizes that The monster isn't after the parents. It's only after you if you have a child.
It's simple is always better. The more you do, the more complex it gets. All you're doing is muddying the water. It just makes everything complicated. You start stepping on toes of other rules. And
I did like this scene, though, the battle with Leia. I do wish that she died. I thought
she did.
She deserved to die. She put up a good fight. She's a little kid. She doesn't stand a chance with this monster, especially when we see in a little bit it rip apart a grown woman in half. It should have taken, and then it's just the same trope of like the monster will immediately kill side characters, but it's gonna take its time and do all sorts of weird trippy stuff, like open up its mouth and have another thing come out of it when it's trying to kill the oldest daughter in the very end.
Yeah.
Why? It's just
I get where you're coming from. I feel like for that scene, that it didn't bother me that much, though, because I put myself in the monster's shoes. And I was like, if I let you live and then you decide you want to light me up with a bunch of shotgun pellets, I'm going to be furious and I'm going to destroy you.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it got angry.
Yeah, it got angry because it was no longer after Lester's wife, right? He was going after Sadie. And he got stopped because he got lit up. It probably hurt a lot. Sadie said that he was bleeding. The boogeyman was bleeding, so she knew that he could die.
I also really liked in the short story, they do the Lester Billings character kind of does a Final Destination type thing. He says that he kind of wants to get locked up in a padded room or something like that. And it's because there's no closets. You could see everything in that room. And I thought, why didn't this wife just go and do that? Because that would be really interesting. That she is not getting currently haunted right now, even though she has this whole setup here. And she could have just moved on, go in an insane asylum, and then she's fine, just like the second girl from Final Destination.
Yeah, it would have been super simple.
There's the very stupid horror trope of taking drugs or getting drunk when there is a ton of danger around. I hate it.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
I, at one point in my life, was a high school teenager. You never would have caught me doing this. I hate the idea that all teenagers are competent when they need to be competent and stupid when they want to be stupid. If you have such a strong character, they're going to make good decisions if they are tending to do that.
Yeah.
But with the whole getting high and having the tooth thing come out, I wrote down that I wish we could have developed that more, like maybe fleshed out. Was she possessed? Why was she possessed? Why was the tooth in her? Did she even make that connection? Why did you include it in the movie? What did it have to do with the boogeyman? Supernatural, not supernatural? Was she actually high? The dad kind of hints at it, and she was imagining what happened? Or was it left over from the possession thing a little while ago? It was just confusing.
Yeah.
When we were watching the movie, I wrote down that there's a writing issue when Sadie gets called back to the Lester's home because Mrs. Billings says it's weakness. It's drawn to weakness, so we need to show its strength. And I wrote down, what the heck? That doesn't even make sense. And then, obviously, it was a trap, so it was supposed to not make sense. It's a good trap. But it is an obvious trap from the phone call. Do you think that Sadie would have been so stupid to have fallen for that or to not connect that what you're saying doesn't make sense? If it's weak, if it's drawn to weakness, we need to show its strength?
Possibly. I don't think it would have been necessarily stupidity as much as desperation, because her sister almost died. And now she's trying to figure out a way, like that night, on how to kill the boogeyman as fast as she can because her dad wants to take them back home.
I thought it was great motivation of Lester Billings' wife.
Yes, absolutely.
It was awesome. Good plan. I thought it was well thought. You disagreed. You said that you wished she would have like had more light or something, right?
Yeah, I wish she would have been smarter. I wish she would have used like a flame, not like a flamethrower, but like the aerosol lighter thing.
She had
like
a flamethrower already. She was lighting the candles up with it.
Yeah, she had a blowtorch, and she made the comment of man first light was fire. And then Sadie goes, do you think it's been around that long? And then she goes, I think it's been around forever. So you already know that if this thing has been around forever, that our ancestors back in caveman times used fire to fight it off.
Yeah.
Don't you think fire, which is more damaging than a flashlight, would be...
So she was smart and stupid.
Yes. And that's what my issue is. She's smart enough to set up these very complex traps, which she says is used for bears, but they're usually not lethal rounds. She's smart enough to swap them out with lethal rounds and set up this whole elaborate trap with tripwire, but not smart enough to have flames to light this guy on fire.
Mm-hmm. I think that I could have, in my head, rationalized that obviously a gun is more powerful than fire, but because she was the one that was talking about fire in the last scene that we saw her, now, no, she would have used fire.
Yeah.
Because it's been talked about so many times. I just wrote down monsters look like A Quiet Place monsters. Monsters look like Stranger Things. The vines, what would you call them? Veins that then envelop a house that's being haunted look like Stranger Things. Very derivative.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was produced by the people. Not directed, but produced. Guess I was wrong.
Lester's wife dies. Your favorite kill and mine. She is ripped in half after being, you said, angered.
Yeah, I think it was angered because it makes sense because he got lit up and she became a threat to him at that point.
Why wasn't he weakened whatsoever?
Because his only weakness is light. That's what they established, I guess. It brings me back to a game that I played called Alan Wake where there's monsters and you literally use a flashlight to fight them off. Mm-hmm. And the flashlight actually does physical damage. If you're going to have a monster or being be having their light as a weakness, you need to show that it is their weakness, that they're just not shy of it.
Oh, hey, video game guy. What video game was Leia playing when she was fighting the monster?
I think it was the new Monster Hunter game that just came out in like 2022.
The game is called Monster Hunter?
Yeah, but there's two of them. I need to look it up. I believe it was Monster Hunter Rise, which is super cool if it was, because it was for the PlayStation. Monster Hunter Rise is on PlayStation. It's also on other consoles, but it's super funny that she's playing Monster Hunter Rise while she's hunting a monster.
Yeah, it's ironic. Could a 10-year-old or around that age play that game?
Today's? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like an RPG. It's complex, but if a kid who's grown up with video games plays it, they could play it easily.
So Sadie runs out of the Lester's house for the second time. She calls her dad, says, don't go in our house. Finally, the dad decides to listen at the worst time and gets taken by the monster.
Standing in the doorway of the house in the dark.
Yeah. If I ever call you and say, don't go inside, you better be grabbing Nemo and running the other direction.
I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when we get home is turn on the light so I can see where I'm going.
Oh, yeah. He just stood in the darkness, didn't he?
Yeah. He's just like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm not going in. What do you need?
He really took a long pause there on the phone.
Yeah.
And I know he was saying, I'm listening. And it's like, great, okay, you got some character resolution.
Yeah, it was
finally
obvious.
He's listening.
Yeah, for Impact.
But Impact held on for a little bit too long. It was a little jarring.
Yeah.
It seemed like an obvious setup. I wish it was faster, like we had that weirdo scare when Sadie came home the last time she was at the Lesters and the monster immediately took them out. I wish the monster maybe they didn't walk in the house yet, and as soon as they walked into the house, he turns on the light and the monster grabs him really, really fast or something.
Yeah.
It just was too telegraphed.
Yep.
So Sadie runs home. Sawyer, Leia, is the toughest kid. I love it. I love how she aerosol sprays. Well, a little bit unbelievable here. She had time to go get extension cords and Christmas lights and then plug it in and go into the closet. Maybe the monster was preoccupied with her dad.
Because they did a good job demonstrating that once the dad knew it was real, he put up a fight. And you see later on, we'll get to it, but he's like near death, and he's still trying to protect his little girls.
Yeah.
So I can believe that the monster.
You're saying
took
by the
him.
disheveled living room?
Yeah, that
because
there was
I thought
a big
the living
fight.
room was already disheveled from Leia's fight.
I think the couch was tossed and the TV was broken, but there wasn't stuff all over. It dragged up the ceiling and then threw into the TV, and that was it.
Oh, I was thinking that the ambient noises that we heard was like smashing and thrashing.
It could have been it, but I still think that the dad fought as long as he could, and that's what gave Leia time to...
Okay. But I like that she just immediately sprays her sister with some sort of disinfectant or something like that. Sadie decides to go down into the basement, and I wrote down very Babadook-esque now. Now we're really simulating the Babadook, and then it gets even more Babadook reminiscent just immediately after. It seems pretty inspired. I would say that this movie is just as much inspired by the Babadook as it was Stephen King's
The
Boogeyman, yes. Maybe a Babadook Quiet Place Boogeyman hybrid. I like that we saw the paint thinner fall because then Leia runs back and grabs it, the very, very last end battle part. Even though I thought it was stupid, when the mom saved her family and the daughter realizes that the mom is saving her family, I cried.
I agree. I don't like the fact that they added that into the movie. However, because they did, I do appreciate the way they tied it into the movie. I wish it would have left that out completely, but with the fact that they had the Sadie like look up how to speak to the dead, and she tried to contact her mom and stuff. If they hadn't had the mom help them defeat the boogeyman in the end, then those like it was a long scene. That whole scene would have been a waste of time.
She sees the mom in Act 2 as well. She sees a more formed version of the mom in Act 2 in the basement.
Yes, I believe that was the boogeyman.
Oh, I didn't think so. I think it was because all her stuff got moved down there, and that's how ghosts apparently in modern thinking work.
You could be right. It could have been that. I just thought it was the boogeyman because of the past of stuff we've seen the boogeyman do. With
That's what I thought. It could be the boogeyman as well, especially now. I really like that idea when you're saying the therapist was a boogeyman at the end. Or are you saying that the actual physical therapist wasn't a boogeyman at the end? You were saying...
I was saying that was a real therapist, but the boogeyman was in the closet.
Then I'm going with that was the mom's ghost in the second act when she sees the video camera and she tries to make the lighter work again.
Yeah, it could be.
So I just wrote down Babadook in the USA. It was a good, maybe not good, an okay... definitely not great last battle scene. The only time I really winced was when the dad's foot breaks like intensely. It was already broken. He tries to stand on it and it crushes.
Yeah, it was a full on like a soccer player when they make contact with the shin.
Yeah.
It snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like how he still kicked the boogeyman in the face, though, when they started
he wasn't an incompetent father with two very strong daughters. I think that that's a good part to point out what you had said about the character of Sadie. How Sadie was a very realistic, strong female lead. She's scared and struggling constantly. She's breaking down, but still trying to be there for her sister. Very Laurie Strode Halloween 1 while babysitting type, where she's screaming and she's scared, but also I have a responsibility here.
Yeah, like they don't want to do it. They're not doing it for glory or to be BA or anything, and they're not successfully.
And it's not really
accomplishing it
naivety.
either.
Like I think Sawyer Leia was really strong as well, but it's more naive, and I think she understood that after she
got messed up.
Yeah, got really wrecked.
Yeah.
So Sadie is rootable, enjoyable, sympathetic. I identified with her. I know you did as well. She's not a Mary Sue, and you just really liked that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I also liked the dad was competent, and as soon as he understood what was going on, he also saves his daughter from getting, I don't know, the blackness sucked out of her face.
Yeah, that reminded me of Dementors.
It did remind me of Dementors. Yeah. I think we already touched it, but the dress, last shot of the dress going up in flames at the end battle scene was very let go of your grief, don't hold on, you have to live your life. That was good.
Did we talk about the kill of the Boogeyman?
No,
the last fight scene was not very good.
I agree with that critic. Not memorable or special.
But I think the kill itself of the Boogeyman burning, the fact that while it was burning and dying, it was going through all the mimics that it had done in its life.
You said you liked that. Yes.
I did like that, because then you also get kind of because right now you only know of the Lester family victim and the new family, right, that it's tormenting. You get kind of a taste of how many people it's tormented when it starts. You just hear all these voices and stuff.
I think maybe if they were going for that, like, do it even more. Like, I would have wanted a barrage. It sounded maybe 20 voices.
Yeah.
I would have wanted hundreds just over the top of each other. And I would have wanted, like, blood-curdling screams.
Which, that just furthers my point that maybe this isn't one Boogeyman that's been around forever. Maybe there's multiple.
Okay.
That's just my theory, trying to rationalize here, but...
We end the movie with the dad finally at the therapist with his girls, which he was ignoring, or what would you say, denying for the entire time since the wife has been gone.
Yeah.
And then my favorite thing, or it was going to be, the final scare mirrors the short story, and I already touched on that in the beginning. I was expecting the Stephen King short story play out with the monster there as the therapist, but you came up with a really great explanation that the monster is still existing, or a monster, a Boogeyman is still existing, and it called back Sadie because the closet was open, and it was in the mimicked voice of the therapist, and Sadie shuts it, symbolizing, I'm done with you. But then the therapist herself walks out and says, did you need something, or can I help you? So the therapist wasn't the one that called her back. So I like it more now. I like the ending more now. I think that it has the Stephen King finisher from the story that was really, really great about the short story. And I like it when a horror movie leaves you off on a cliffhanger. I think everybody should die and the monster should win, or one person should be there, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they're like wrecked forever.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Just because you are trying to tell us there's more than one Boogeyman, I'm not saying make another one. I like the fact that they left a cliffhanger for us to imagine ourselves.
Yeah, you don't have to make a sequel.
Yeah.
Don't make a sequel.
But
I want to be scared that it's still coming after me when I go home.
Yeah, because then it adds that realistic feeling to where, oh crap, it could be in my home.
Yeah.
And then you imagine your own story now. If you make a sequel, you're going to ruin it, and it's just going to be a mess.
No, I hope that you're okay with sleeping with the lights on tonight. That's definitely happening. What was the shining star of this movie? I think for us, it was the acting.
Yes.
Can't be the direction or editing or storytelling because it was so convoluted.
Yeah, and the writing, like the dialogue, had great moments, but then there were contradicting moments as well. So the writing really wasn't all that great either.
I did feel a lot of emotion, though.
I did.
So, I mean, no movie is perfect. This isn't like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness continuity breaking. It was just little tiny things. And so maybe we're being a little bit too harsh. But I wish they would have stuck with one story, we're adapting Stephen King and then telling a left field story.
And like I said, even though this movie has a lot of issues, for me, even, and I know my opinion changes as we talk about it and stuff, it opens my eyes more to more plot holes and stuff, it's still one of my favorite movies that we've watched this year.
It was a good movie compared to the rest this year.
Yeah, and it's a movie that if you wanted to watch it again, I would be more than happy. If someone else wanted to watch it, I would be more than happy to watch it. I enjoyed this movie a lot, regardless of the stuff, because it was fun.
It was
fun. And it
fun.
was entertaining, and to me, there was a lot of emotional ties, and some of that has to do with the writing. I think a lot of the emotional feeling that you get from it is the acting, because they do such a good job with their crying faces. There's no, like, comedic crying face. Like, some people don't have very good fake crying faces.
Even though I felt like it was muddy, I really liked the grief and the struggle and the moments that we had with these characters. I wanted to root for them. I wanted to help them. I felt like they conveyed what was going on inside their head and within their life in a short period of time very, very well.
Yeah, and the growth of the characters was great, too.
Yes. So the character writing was great. The acting was top-notch. Maybe for me, the monster was the worst part of it.
I'm going to agree. Yeah, because I felt more fear and adrenaline before you see the monster. You get a few glimpses of the monster, but not enough to kind of make out the details of it. As soon as you get the full details of it and you start playing on its strengths and its weaknesses, you lose
But
me.
I don't want a movie to come along and just do, because I don't like this either, when they only tease you with the monster and they never even show it to you.
Yeah, I think it's like you said earlier, it would have been good if it was more of a practical monster, maybe a guy in a suit with prosthetics, than CGI. I think the CGI definitely ruined it. And then you take that and add it with the fact that it wasn't a very polished weakness. There's a lot of confusion on the weakness of the monster.
Fleshed out, I think you mean.
Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah. The fact that you add that in there with it, you're really going to lose a lot of people.
Or not a lot of people, but maybe just a grip on how do we fight this thing? How is it working?
Yeah, and
what should we be scared of?
Yeah, I mean, when I say lose, I don't mean like people are going to walk out. I mean, they're going to be more confused by what's going on, that they're not going to be fearful anymore. And the whole point of a horror movie is to be scared, or at least have some adrenaline going.
I think that we pretty much exhausted every topic possible of The Boogeyman. Thank you so much for listening to our review of this movie. We hope that you enjoyed it. Our next movie that we will be covering is Transformers. We've already got our Transformers movie tickets. I'm super excited for it. And I have been critical of The Boogeyman, but I guarantee you it is going to be far and away. It's going to be masterpiece tier compared to Transformers.
Yeah, I'm excited for Transformers. I'm expecting it to be a crapshoot.
Transformers is not graded on quality. It is graded on
Entertainment
purely.
Yeah.
And if it has really good elements of a movie like the first one did, then I'm surprised and I'm happy. But it's strictly a good time. It's more, for me, I use Transformers and movies like Transformers as an excuse to purge and stuff my face full of empty calories. And I have an excuse to do it, because if I was just alone sitting in my home eating nachos and popcorn and candy and drinking a soda the size of my torso, it would be sad and pathetic, like The Whale. But because I get to do it in a movie theater along with several other people, it's like my favorite experience. We are also planning on watching, hopefully, next weekend on June 9th, I think, The Crowded Room comes out on Apple TV. And I really want to watch that because it's got Elizabeth Olsen in it, who is super high girl crush. It's got Tom Holland. And this was one of the causes for Tom Holland's drinking problem that he just recently got over. So I'm very interested in how either this movie was so bad or so deep that would have caused him to do that. So hopefully we'll get a review out for The Crowded Room and Transformers next weekend.
Yeah, hopefully.
If you would like to give our podcast feedback and comment or respond to the thoughts that we shared here today, we would love to hear from you. Our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube handles are @ScreenStoops. That's SCREENSTUPES. We are new to this, and I would like to improve in any way possible. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
See you.